Transfer portal has really heated up. Now, I know that I've probably spoken a little too grandiose a term about how explosive this was going to be. That doesn't mean things aren't happening, though. Jaden Rashada, for example, about 5 minutes before we went on the air down at Miami the other night, he decommitted from Arizona State or entered the portal from Arizona State. So he's landed at Georgia. I wanted to go a little deeper that night, but I didn't have freedom to. But now I can. So Georgia was the overwhelming favorite the whole time for his services. This is where I thought he would land. And that's why, if you'll remember that night, I said don't expect him to just automatically land at the place where he can start immediately. I think that sometimes when you go somewhere where NIL and immediate playing time are the priorities and it doesn't work out, and in his case, he was being pushed. Make no mistake. He was being pushed and may have even been beaten out in spring practice out there from the Michigan State transfer. It forces you sometimes to reassess things. Dante Moore did this at UCLA and now transferred to Oregon and will not start this year, former 5-star. Well, you got Rashada doing the same thing. Goes to Arizona State. It is what it is his freshman year. He's on the move again. He's not going to start, obviously, at Georgia this year unless catastrophic injury happens. So what does he do? He goes there and enters a really talented quarterback room, and he develops. That's what Dante Moore's going to do. That's what he's going to do. And I don't think it's the worst strategy in the world. And so then, just like the talk was with Arch Manning and Quinn Ewers the other day, well, now what happens with Ryan Puglisi? They compete, guys. That's what happens. This is, again, it's not Xbox. It's the real world. Your strategy is very simple. Throw as many great players in your locker room as you can, as long as their culture fits, and then let them fight it out. And whichever one's good enough will start, and hopefully your other guys hang around. But if they don't, it's a product of a culture of competition. So it's not the worst thing in the world, is my point. So I'm watching that, and then I'm also looking around the country elsewhere, and I'm wondering what's about to happen with Keandre Lambert-Smith. That was the Penn State wide receiver who is now on the move to Auburn. And so he lands down there, and when we had Hugh Freeze on the show, he said, yeah, we expect that we'll probably have to make a move or two at the wide receiver position. Well, they just made this one. It's weird to say this. They need guys that can complement Cam Coleman, and Cam Coleman's a true freshman. So normally we're not talking like that. Normally we're talking about the true freshman coming in and, ooh, can they work to complement some of the guys already on campus? Well, Auburn's not in an idealistic roster situation. So their best may be the true freshman. And we were down there and we watched him practice the other day towards the latter portion of spring ball. Total and complete alien. He's going to have to play as a freshman. They brought him in there to play as a freshman. I don't know how much, I don't know how mentally advanced he is. Physically, he's a senior already. But that's the way it is at Auburn. Well, this helps. Keandre Lambert-Smith comes in. He's a veteran. He's been around the block a time or two. Comes in there by way of Penn State. It's just a good addition. I don't know that they're done there either, but it's a good addition to that room. At Colorado, it deserves a little stroke of the chin what's happening at Colorado right now. So I've spoken my whole piece on Deion's approach. I will speak about what happened since the last time you and I talked, though. Dylan Edwards, the tailback that scored 4 times against TCU in their opener last year, he's in the portal. So there's been some talk out there. Deion had a press conference last week, and I'm not going to say he was adversarial, but he went back and forth with the media a little bit when they were asking him about the portal departures and the portal exodus. And he was like, well, who's leaving? Have you noticed who's leaving? And basically his insinuation was, we're losing guys that we don't mind losing. We're not losing starters. Well, as recently as last week, his assistant coaches were talking about how integral to their offense this year Dylan Edwards will be. Well, he won't be because he's on the move. And so everything's not an indictment, okay? Just like every good thing's not validation, you're doing everything right. Every bad thing's not a total indictment, you're doing things wrong. But this is a big blow for them. And now the backside is who fills the spot. Okay, so that's the conversation he would have, and when we're done with the portal, that's the conversation we can have. Kansas State, Kansas, Nebraska, Ole Miss, those are some of the schools we've heard about with him. Michigan State's having a tough time here, and like I've told you guys every time we talk about the portal, well, sometimes when we talk about the portal, I expected Michigan State to struggle at the outset. Long term, I think they'll be okay. Long term, Michigan State is in a lot better situation financially, I think, than most folks realize. But Jonathan Smith came in there, and his staff came in there from Oregon State, and I just don't know that they were ready to jump in that fast lane. And that's not I use the word again, it's not the biggest indictment in the world. It just is what it is. And I know that he was very inquisitive. He asked a lot of questions when he got there. How do we do this thing? How do we build this thing? You don't figure that out in 2 months. They haven't figured it out. They've lost like a dozen guys to the portal. Several of them were going to be impact players for them this fall. Now, they can go get some too, but that's something I'm watching because it is a churn. It's very much a churn. It's a year one kind of sharp, steep learning curve for the folks at Michigan State. Terrence Brooks entered the portal the other night, and I wanted to ask around on this. He was very, very highly regarded, very highly recruited at one point at Texas, defensive back there. And Texas in that DB room, not the best of years last year. Kind of hit and miss this spring. And I don't think this is a bad thing for either party. I think he was being pushed depth-wise, and he is not at a point in his career where he can afford to be bypassed on the depth chart. And so it's natural progression of competition there. You're going to have some older guys, some upperclassmen that are not so subtly pushed out the door, not for the wrong reasons, but for the right reasons, because you got other good players there pushing them. And it would have been a good thing if he stuck around. It's not the worst thing in the world if he leaves. I don't think that, Texas is really pulling their hair out, and it's no disrespect to him. It's just I think they're in a fairly decent place there. Nigel Kelly, did you notice what he did? He was at Miami a couple of cycles ago. He was one of the most highly regarded recruits in that class, 6'6", 260. He's appeared in 16 games for Miami over his first 2 years there. So he went to UCF before I tell you what I think about it. He goes to UCF. UCF's doing some interesting stuff. They are really parlaying this Big 12 affiliation and pushing everything into the middle of the table. So not only do they have a top 25 portal class there, Malzahn and his staff just signed the best recruiting class that Central Florida's had in the history of the program. And we were down there last Wednesday, I want to say. And let me tell you, there are big time, like power conference plans around there. They're about to expand that place. Beautiful new facility. It'll take a couple of years, but a beautiful new facility. What I would call a lazy river, they would call a training apparatus. It perfectly fits Central Florida. But my point there is they're doing it right. Central Florida did not, pull the lever, 777s. Oh, we're in the Big 12 now. And then just sit back and rest on their laurels. They said, we got a golden opportunity. Let's kick the door down. And they're in the process of doing it. They're portaling and they're recruiting like they never have before. And they should be, because they're in a position they've never been in before.